Indeed, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to KTN Business Today. My name is Jimmy Mbog. We have an amazing show lined up for you this afternoon. In the second part of the show, we'll be telling you how the diaspora community can play a role in improving, that is the health sector in the country. But first, let's have a look at some of the stories making headlines in the world of business. Now, ABSA Bank Kenya has reported a profit of 14.6 billion shillings after tax for the year ending December 2022, representing a 34% growth. Now, the lender, however, has declared the lowest dividend payout of 1.35 shillings per share, which they say is a 23% increase from last year, bringing the total dividend payout to 7.3 billion shillings.
We've tried to reach out to demographics that the business was not reaching out to before. We've become more inclusive of all sorts of businesses that would not have looked at before. And we've also turned out to be an employer of choice. We've got people in the business who are really motivated, excited to work here, and that comes through in the employee engagement. So the youth agenda and the digital agenda are key to our strategy for the next horizon. And business banking, expanding the customer base and reaching out to new demographics within that space. We are also looking to leveraging on ecosystems, particularly when it comes to the corporate and investment banking customers, who are primarily the large businesses in this marketplace. They've got ecosystems of distributors and wholesalers and so on, and leveraging on that so that we bank the entire ecosystem.
All right, and still remaining with matters banking. Now, I spoke to ABSA Bank interim CEO, that is Yusuf Omar, on a number of issues ranging from the financial health of the institution, their continued divestment from government paper, as well as the diversification of let me take that again. That is the diversification of their revenue streams. And here is how that conversation went.
Last year, I mentioned we spent about 2 billion shillings investing in technology. We had about 75 different projects just running with that. Yeah. And from that investment, we've seen a big efficiency agenda coming through, where we've seen our cost-income ratio coming down from the highs of 55% 5 years ago. Today, we are at 41%. And with that, we definitely want to continue with that momentum. So in the subsequent years, 2 billion is what we did last year. We should be able to see continuous investments, including this year, over 2 billion, to be invested. We mentioned from our strategy perspective, when you look at our retail business, we still want to give more channels to our customers, which means more investment on that side. Our SME, while our SME customers have been able to embrace technology, we still see more opportunities on that one. And a bigger one will be where we automate the onboarding process for our SME customers. And then lastly, to me, really is the partnerships that I spoke to fintechs. Yeah. For you to be able to partner with fintechs, then it means you need to have open API investments that can then be able to have a seamless integration between our core banking systems and different systems that we have in the bank with what the fintechs can be able to offer.
All right, now you've talked about 16 new revenue streams that you have diversified your investments. So what is the knock-on effect of that? And going into the future, how much further are you looking to diversify?
Yeah, I think we looked back 5 years ago. We saw we were broadly, in 4 main areas, broadly. Okay. Within that period, we've been able to introduce 16 new propositions that we were not participating in. For example, a simple one is bank assurance. Yeah. We're not big in bank assurance. Today, that business is giving us over 1 billion shillings in additional revenue. That gives us a good basis of not relying just on the balance sheet, because most of these are non-interest revenue lines, income lines. which means if you're not pumping on the balance sheet, you still have your non-funded income coming through, and from that perspective, then it means your revenue streams is diversified.
Yeah.
Tied to that, we saw a few years ago, our retail business was quite massive, which then meant we are really heavily reliant on that business.
Yeah.
Today, we've been able to see it's a good balance, 50% retail, 50% wholesale, and from that perspective, then we are able to, to make sure that the sustainability of our revenue going forward is assured.
All right, let's talk about your liquidity for a minute now. It has gone down from 38.3% to about 33.5%. Maybe you can help us understand what's happening in that area.
Yeah. So liquidity, if you look at the regulatory limits on liquidity, is 20%. So 33% is still a significant headroom from what is from a regulatory perspective.
Yeah.
And the main reason for that, to be honest, is if you look at the investments we've done with our customers, our loans and advances have picked up year on year by 21%. A big chunk of that is actually going to SMEs. And so that basically means we've reduced our investments in government security.
Yeah.
And taken that investments to customers who are actually spurring the economy. They're the ones who are creating jobs, and they're the same, customers who are able to support us when it comes to deposit. Okay. So, yeah, the liquidity ratio has come down slightly, but really way below, way above what you have from a regulatory perspective.
Now, your return from the FX market, that is something to smile about. And maybe you can also just help us in terms of the trends that you have seen, and especially over the last few months and over the last year, we've seen a lot of complaints about the dollar shortage. Where are you now? And when you look at the market, how far or what needs to be done to address this? Because manufacturers are complaining, saying that they're getting the dollar at about 136, which is way above the CBK rates.
Yeah, I think for us to be able to appreciate the dollar situation, we need to look at the root causes for this. The geopolitical risks that we are seeing with the war in Ukraine and Russia. We are big importers coming from those areas when you look at food, especially vegetable oil. When you look at wheat, we are big importers of wheat. And then, of course, the oil sector. So with that, then it means without us increasing on the consumption side, automatically the demand of the dollar picks up. And that's exactly what has happened, in this period. Coupled, of course, with the challenges that are happening globally. You've seen quite a number of different regulators increasing their reference rates. We've seen in the US, you've seen in the UK, which means quite a number of investors are now pulling back and holding, the hard currencies within, their investment spheres in their different countries. And tied to that, of course, one of our biggest sources of FX is tourism. So tourism is not at the level that it was pre-COVID period. So that's just understanding why we have the shortage. I think, to me, when I look at what we see going forward, it's quite promising. Right. We've seen COVID is behind us. We are seeing the business sentiments are picking up. We are seeing inflation. For the first time in January, inflation started coming down. So it's a matter of time before we are able to get, our control on the FX situation.
All right, going by the coverage that you have on your loan book, it seems to be growing. But at the same time, there's a concern of non-performing loans. Now, the question there then comes in is how do you balance the two?
Yeah, I think for us, whenever we lend to our customers, we're always looking at fundamentals. We lend on the back of, the customer's business propositions. We lend on the back of their liquidity projections. And from that, you've been able to see our gross non-performing loan book has basically come down over this reporting period. And tied to that, of course, then you've seen our gross NPL ratio coming down from 7.7, now it's 7.3%, which speaks to our prudence in terms of making provisions where we see challenges. Yeah. And let's face it, our book has picked up. So when you're seeing all of that, NPL is coming down, our NPL ratios are coming down, yet our book has picked up 21%. It tells you we are lending, we are a responsible lender to our different categories of our customers.
All right, as we wind up, outlook for the year, are you bullish, are you bearish, or are you just in between waiting to see what happens?
I think for me, really, we've gone through some challenging time as an industry. We looked at all the headwinds when we mentioned geopolitical risks. We mentioned the challenges that we are seeing, of course, with the drought situation. I'm glad that, here in Nairobi, yesterday it rained heavily. So we hope we'll start seeing, that the drought situation easing. We believe we are coming from the toughest point that we faced last year. So we are having some very good positive sentiments. If you look at the industry, the performance, be it in terms of the lending growth that is picking up, revenue is picking up, and the profitability is also picking up. Of course, this is coming because we are lending to our customers. And from that perspective, we believe also from the customers themselves, they'll be able to thrive, which then means it's quite a positive sentiment going forward.
All right, now I don't know if where you live rained yesterday, but where I stay, it didn't rain. And of course, that conversation, you can catch the full conversation on Trading Bell in the coming days. Now, we want to cross over to the National Treasury, where the Kenya National Entrepreneur Saving Trust has today unveiled its Board of Trustees. Let's cross over to Noah Kipkemboi, who has more. Noah, good afternoon.